Welcome back, Airbnb Automated Family. My name is Donnie. I'm a 5-year superhost, and I work here with Sean's team at Airbnb. One of the most amazing questions we get asked a lot is, can you actually replace your full-time income with Airbnb? Well, this week's guest not only did that, but has one of the most intricate ways of running her business where she's making a full-time income, but at the same time with minimal work. And I can't wait to understand more about what she's done here. Really a lifestyle entrepreneur. So welcome to the show today, Amy McIntyre.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Amy, you got a really interesting business. We're going to dive deep into it, but how about you just give us a quick introduction? What's your name, where you're from, and what you do now?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Amy McIntyre. I currently reside in Indianapolis, Indiana. I am born and raised in Indiana, but have been in Indianapolis since '99. I actually went to nursing school here, and I was an ICU nurse at the county hospital for 8 years before I got super burned out and became a real estate agent. So I've been in real estate. I was on a top 10 team for 14 years here in Indianapolis as a lead buyer specialist, and have just recently gone out on my own. And then in 2019 is when I started the Airbnb, which I do that as well. And, always thinking about other businesses to start because I get bored easily.
So many questions to ask you because
Yeah.
you are actually part of two of the biggest industries that are mass migrating to Airbnb, and that is nursing and real estate. I've been getting a lot
Yeah.
of calls from those in the medical industry. My mom was a nurse, so I know how tough the profession is, but burnout seems to be pretty synonymous in the industry, especially post-COVID. You left before any of that even started. What was that like? And can you give us a little, maybe a little backstory or maybe some insight for other nurses out there who are thinking, can I leave? And is this even normal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I have a very high driver personality, and not everybody has that type of personality. But I loved being a nurse, and at the end of the day, I just got super burned out. It's very easy in the ICU, is like dog years. So, I did have a little bit of help joining my sister's team. But again, like it took like a year for me to get my first client in real estate. But it's very easy for teachers and nurses to transition into some sort of real estate, whether it be being a professional realtor or also getting into Airbnb, because it's a hospitality, it's a service industry. And that is really, I mean, nurses are very smart and I love them all. And they also have to hold a high level of service as well in their job. So typically when I see teachers and nurses, I see them transition very well into real estate of any kind.
That's great. That's great. Now, in terms of real estate, great industry because obviously, high commissions, write your own paycheck and whatnot. What brought you ultimately into Airbnb?
Yeah, so I had built slash renovated a farmhouse in from 2013 to 2017, and on 2 acres in the city of Indianapolis. And my life had changed a little bit, and it was just me living in the house. And so, the market's crazy in, 2019, and I'm thinking maybe I'll sell it. And my sister actually said, there's this house in Carmel, Indiana that's been Airbnb, and they like rent their place out for $600 a night. Like, you should try it. And so I did, and it was right at the end of 2019. So of course I got the three main holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And then right away I had all these bookings for 2020, and then COVID happened, and it canceled. And so all of those canceled, which I was fine with because like, this is my house I live in, right? But I loved it. Like, I loved sharing my house that I had built and graciously sharing that with other people. And I was making a lot of money. And so 2020 is when I started watching videos, because I was wondering, like, how could I rent out like an entire floor of apartments and do this? My mind was like tick, 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 entrepreneurial, because, to buy a house, we're in the height of the market. And I was thinking about buying another house, and, the down payment amount and the home prices, and, to get a house, you have to pay $50,000 over list price. And I just really didn't want to do that at the time. And so, that's when I found Sean. And it's interesting fast forward to June of 2020, every single weekend from that moment forward, my house was booked. And I do a 3-night minimum it was $550 a night. So at that time, I was hotel hopping, or I was renting an Airbnb in like a not very great area that was like $50 a night. And I would be getting ready like on the floor of this hotel, listening to all of Sean's videos for about 6 months.
What an incredible journey. I think there's something interesting too, because you went from house sharing to renting out the entire house. But if I read correctly, when you rent out your house, you have 2 dogs with you.
I do, yes. So it was getting crazy. So before I got into the apartment process, I was dropping my dogs off at the sitter, and then I was going to another Airbnb, or I was, visiting friends, or I was staying at a hotel. And then after the stay, I would go pick them up, but I was still making a significant amount of money. And so, eventually when I got into arbitrage, I picked up a unit here in the building where I have most of my apartments. So I just have this apartment that I live in pretty much 75% of the time. And it's super easy because I just run over and put the laundry in the unit that I am arbitraging across the hall. I have 3 there, 1 and 2 upstairs, and 1 in the building next door.
Oh, you're living the dream.
Yeah. I mean, it's super easy. Like I watch a lot of people struggle, and I'm like, this is so easy. I feel like I could have 20 of them and would still be like, what's next? Like, so I feel like I have a system down pat that's pretty good for me, to where it's easy. But yes, I have 2 dogs, and I was moving them from, place to place while I tried out Airbnb in my house, because in 2020 is when, the second half of 2020 is when people wanted a safe space to come and meet their family. Like, I mean, I was having people from New York, California, Minnesota, all meeting at my house just to like be with family, because they haven't seen them in 6 months.
This is such an important part, because I think a lot of people are always gun shy. Like you said, we're high drivers. Myself, yourself, entrepreneurs, we're high drivers. We're always, kick the ball and play the ball where it lands. But the other half of the world, they're the exact opposite. They're very risk adverse. And so they're going to find every single reason why this isn't going to work, or they're going to overanalyze. And I think what's interesting is when you entered the market, it was the peak of the market, 2019. When I entered the market, it was the worst of the worst of the real estate in my market. And we both made it work. And what's even more interesting, in 2020, when there isn't a single plane in the sky or a border open to any human being, there's still ways to make money off Airbnb. And that's just kind of the elasticity of the product and of the market. It's that people need to be social, people want their own space, and people want to be in inviting experiences in each one. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that really opened up my eyes to where to go next, how to expand, and what that looked like, because I really did not want to get into the 1 night, 2 night business downtown type arbitrage apartment. So that was really the main reason why I was looking for a course from Sean before he ever had it. Like, I was trying to figure out a way to get one question answered that I had. So I learned very early on. I mean, in 2020, I grossed that from June to the end of December, like over $40,000, and that paid for my mortgage. I mean, so I was like, holy cow, like I have a unicorn here. How can I replicate this in a way that is going to work for me, not keep me too busy, and also I can profit from, because it was scary getting into arbitrage. Like,
Hmm.
I'm very successful, obviously, like in my real estate business, but I didn't want to blow like $7,000, $5,000, and then like, oh my God, I'm in this lease and I can't rent this. So it is scary. And I also have a mindset that anytime I start feeling in anything that I do, we're going into a crazy real estate market that nobody knows what's going to happen. But anytime I'm feeling scarce, I just remind myself that I'm abundant. That's it. Like, I'm abundant. And so if I have a week where nobody's booking one of my apartments, I'm like, it'll happen. I'm abundant. And it does. It always does.
I really want to touch into this because you've posted about this a few times. You started in Sean's program, and there were times where you actually had posted this and you weren't sure. You weren't sure if this was going to work. You didn't want to risk that, $7,000 to $10,000. Was it just a mindset thing for you? What else do you use? What other practices do you use to help you through those gut-wrenching times?
Yeah, I mean, for me, um, I'm just the type of person that jumps into something and says, when I quit my nursing job in the worst real estate market ever, December of 2010, I didn't know like how I was ever going to get paid again. I mean, I went from getting paid biweekly to I don't know when I'm going to get another paycheck. And so for me, I just jump in with with both feet and just say, and no matter what, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. And I had a number and I blew that number out of the water the first year. And so that's what I've done with my Airbnb business. And yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question, the reason why I entered Sean's program is because I had one question I wanted to ask. Like, I didn't want to be in downtown and I wanted to be in the suburbs. And I just wanted his validation that that would work. And so on the coaching call, I got to ask him, and he was like, I don't know. Like, if there's a lot of hotels popping up in the area, then yeah. And so I was like, I don't care what he says. I'm just going to do it. And it has been so amazing here in the suburbs. Number one, I'm the only person doing this. And number two, what I realize is because I like to cater to longer term stays, there are so many grandparents with grandkids that live in the suburbs and they come and stay for like a month or 2 weeks. Or I mean, like I have 7 units here in Fishers, Indiana, which is a suburb. It's always in like Forbes top 10 cities to live in the United States. And they are constantly booked. And so my thing is, when I got my first one, what happened was I was super nervous. I took 2 weeks to get it ready. I love design, so I made it all cutesy. And a Pacer player manager found it and wanted her chef to stay there. So at the time she was booking, somebody else wanted to book because they were at the same time. They were looking for a house and they needed 3 months. And so I only targeted lease up. So the one next to me was available. So I got that one for that person. And so I ended up starting 2 at one time. And then somebody else reached out to me and said they needed to stay for like 3 months. So I grabbed one upstairs. So I just kept grabbing like the lease ups, because the brand new units, because they weren't being rented. And so at that time they're giving me like $1,000 for furniture here and there. And so that's really how it got started. And it took off. Like, is crazy. And then my house was being rented every weekend. So I ended up getting the unit across the hall from 3 of my units. So, I could keep an eye on people, but they're all great. I mean, I haven't had really one issue in my apartments.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the suburbs if you understand how to get it going. I've been a downtown guy, just like what you said. Downtown arbitrage, quick arbitrage, long arbitrage doesn't matter. Recently, my very first purchase with my girlfriend, we ended up just buying the unit that we stayed in. We rented it fully furnished. We bought it from the landlord. It's at the tip of the city, the edge of the city. It's doing phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And it's exactly that type of clientele that you're speaking of. It's the older, it's the more mature. They're not out here getting drunk and trashing the place, and they stay for longer.
They do. And that's less cleaning, that's less supplies, that's less me running across the hall. And so, it's different than I think what Sean does, but I found something that worked for me. And I am making minimum netting $1,000 a month from every one of my units. Minimum netting.
That's why I love your model, is because you kind of decided what you wanted to be, and more importantly, you decided what you didn't want to be, which is absolutely great. Here's my question for you. Did you really have the idea to scale fast, or is it more of this opportunity came knocking? I'm not going to say no, kind of the Jeff Bezos way?
Yes. So I did not have the intention. I mean, my intention, the goal is to have $15,000 of somewhat passive income coming in so that I can take off and go to Europe for 6 months and not have to worry about, like, how am I going to pay for what, So I knew that, and I thought maybe that would take 5 years. And I really didn't know what to expect. And, I took, and this is, in the course and some of the people that I see on the Facebook groups discussing is that, number one, I know how to hustle. Number two, I know how to prospect. So, I think for a week straight, for 3 hours a day, I would just go on the apartment websites and just email like 10 to 20 people a day, or call and find somebody that it was going to work. But I targeted specific luxury properties. And so I only planned on having one every, okay, let's wait 6 months and see how it goes. And within the first year, I had, I think, 6, including my own house. So it just happened and I rolled with it.
That's great. That's great. I think there is a big part of setting your intention, and because it allows you to understand what's your bottom line, what's your no. And if it doesn't fit that model, then I'm going to say no. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be abundant, and I'll just take one step towards a vision every single day. Absolutely love that. Did you always, because we've already kind of talked about, but did you always have that in your mind that I'm not going to do that one night arbitrage? I'm going to build this more lifestyle. I want it more hands off.
Yep. And I go like 2 days vacant in between stays, and it doesn't bother me because on my 1 bedrooms, I'm making anywhere from like 2,300 to 3,200 a month. So, and my costs here are pretty low. Like my rents are only, when I first started, they were like 1,100 per 1 bedroom. Now they're 1,300, but still I'm cash flowing pretty well on those. But I always knew that I wanted to be high service, high quality, high design. That's another thing, like what is going to, and I know that just if I'm going to list a home, like what's going to make you stand out from all these other houses that are listed, right? So when I decorate my properties, it's always, what am I going to do to make mine stand out? So I do the peel and stick wallpaper, or like crazy, like cool designs. I have a guy that like rehabs like all of my dressers and paints them the colors that I wanted. So for me, this past 2 months, I got my first 4-star review, and it wasn't even bad. Everything else was 5-star. They just hit 4-star in 3 years.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because you do have perfect 5-star ratings for 3 years. And that's why I really want to touch on today's, what are the little secrets you have? And then I would really want to talk about your furniture rehabber. But for yourself, clearly you're doing something right, because 3 years straight of 5-star reviews, that's very hard to do. Very, very hard, because everyone runs into the one weird person that knocks you for not having a pizza cutter. So what would you say your secret is for that 3-year run?
First and foremost is my cleaner. And so this is where I do not go by Sean's model or some of the other models. Like I had watched the podcast from last week, and I know a ton of people in the Facebook group. So I pay my cleaners she's amazing. And it's her and her mom and basically her family that clean my house. My 5,000 square foot house is 180, and my 1 bedrooms are $80, and my 2 bedrooms are 110. And a lot of people would be like, oh my God, but I charge that to the person that's renting. So what does it make a difference? Everybody says that it's the cleanest place that they've ever been in. And number two is that I won't rent anything that is a B, like less than an A+ property. And so that's why I go after lease up. So if anybody doesn't know what a lease up is, that's a brand new apartment complex that is being built. So first and foremost, it's the cleaners. Secondly, is I stock it with everything because I want to cater to the long-term person. So, I mean, it has a mini crock pot. It has a blender. It has a toaster. It has, for a 1 bedroom, 5 of everything. And, I get my plates at the dollar store. I mean, and my wine glasses and glasses and really it's just the design made, I get good mattresses. I do spend, around $400 to $500 per mattress. And just really, I just get stuff that's made to look nice and sturdy. My dressers were having a really hard time. So that's when I found this guy. Because putting a dresser together is always a nightmare, and the drawers never, whatever. And I would say secondly is that I'm attached to my phone, right? Like realtors are attached to their phones. So anytime somebody books, it's automatic. Hi, Joe, happy to have you. That's And I always give them the instructions a couple days prior. Anytime they ask a question, I am like right there responding unless I'm sleeping. So really, I think that's it. Like, you want to be a professional. I mean, that is just something that I would have a hard time. And the other thing is I'm just attached to it, right? So I have not given my job away at this point. So for me, I just know how to be in a service industry.
Have you stayed at an Airbnb recently that wasn't yours?
Yeah, in Doha, Qatar.
On Doha, great.
Yeah.
Do you start noticing these things right off the bat when they're a little
Right
missing?
when I walk in. But that's just me. I'm very detail oriented. So like, even if I'm in my own house and I see like a little dust bunny, I'm like, oh, So I mean, it was as good as it was going to get. But I mean, the very first Airbnb the second one I ever booked, which is when I stayed at when the very first time I rented my own property, I walked in and it hadn't been turned over yet. And I was like, oh my God. And so I just told the girl, I was like, look, I'm not going to leave a review at all. But your forks had like food stuck to them. But I would say the first thing is, it is so worth it for me to have amazing cleaners. And I give them $1,000 to $2,000 bonus a year during Christmas time for the 5-star reviews that I've received, because it has nothing to do with me. I mean, it's really about them and how amazing they are, and the relationship that I've created with them. They're like my family.
Right. So what's incredible is you've taken almost the same strategy that they use for realtors, sales teams, startups, and incorporate that with your cleaners. Let them understand that you're not my cleaners. I'm not trying to squeeze every ounce of productivity out of you. Let's build, let's grow together.
And she asked me like if I would teach her how to do what I'm doing. And I'm just like, of course, anything to, leaders lift other leaders up. So, Sean's mentality of sharing and giving, and as much as he does, like, I totally buy into that model. Like, that's who I am as well. So if somebody ever wanted to reach out and, I tell them like, this is how I did it. And then, here's Sean's class if you want to get into it, or, but yeah, I mean, I haven't used much of, some of it I have used, but, the calls were the most important part of the trainings for me. I mean, most of it I already knew, like, I don't need to know how to like make a bed or decorate, or, you know what I mean? But some of the stuff is very helpful. but I don't use the pricing strategy. I keep mine pretty flat unless I don't have some weeks. I probably could be making a lot more, but again, I want to be as hands off as possible.
And that's what I want to touch on, because again, you've really crafted a lifestyle business. So how many hours does it take for your every single week to run the portfolio currently?
Maybe 3.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I literally just run across and like, oh, they need TP, and I have all that stuff in my apartment, and then, or I just order something off of Amazon, or I go to Costco and drop it off at my house. So,
Amazing.
I do not that I don't trust my cleaners, but there's just sometimes where they might leave something in the dryer. I do come in after them every single time just to double check.
Sean has a great a phrase that he says with exactly this, and it's that you let the leaders lead, you grow leaders, but you will inspect what you expect.
Yes.
So you're going to have all the autonomy, but I will inspect the level that we expect the business to run at. So absolutely incredible. 3 hours per week. You've really fine-tuned your machine. And I believe you're at, correct me if I'm wrong, about 80,000 per year. Last time we checked pure profit.
So right now I'm at 95 net between
Perfect.
the house and all of the apartments, because I have 3 apartments. One I'm setting up right now, my second 2-bedroom, and then I have 2 that I set up in Zionsville, Indiana, that I haven't paid off yet. Like, I mean, they've only been rented for like a month now, so I haven't paid back the investment yet.
Gotcha.
And that's with paying my $44,000 mortgage a year.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely incredible. I think you're at exactly where everybody wants to be. But more importantly, people see that you don't have to build a giant machine. You can actually do something, make it more of a lifestyle, and then do that 3 hours per week and do, almost 6 figures.
Right.
Really, really cool what you're doing here.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not yet to the point where I could replace my income, because obviously in real estate, I make a little bit more than that. And, I will say, doing what Sean does, I think is amazing. And that model is just not for me. And I took what worked for me and then left the rest, and I think, in our program, there are people that do all kinds of things. Mine, and I don't do real estate that way. I was on a high team real estate and I got burned out because it was no longer about the person and the quality, it was about the quantity. And so for me, it's about quality, not quantity, because if I can build a product that is high quality, I will get the same results as somebody else that has the quantity. Like, I don't want a unit that's only profiting 500 a month or 400. That's not worth it to me, because I don't want 100 of those. If that makes sense.
Oh, got a little visitor.
Hi there.
Everyone say hi to Trigger. Hi, buddy. Well, I love that, again, because I think a lot of people also, they see Sean and they say, holy cow, I don't want to do that. That's huge. 200 units. And that's why you're a perfect example of, hey, you don't have to be the biggest, the best, the baddest out there, the most amount of units. You can go for quality and it can work just fine. So I love how you worded that. Thank you. I think you're going to be a big inspiration for a lot of people who understand, you know what, if you start with the end in mind, it's so much easier to reverse engineer the whole strategy. You don't need $1 million per year. I think a lot of people would be pretty hard pressed to spend $1 million per year. Where if you can even dial it down to, what if I can even just make an extra $5,000 per month? $5,000 per month extra on a few hours of work per week can change a lot of families' lives. So again, I just love the example you're leading right here.
Yeah. And I do have, I've been listening to Sean's postings on Instagram lately, and what I am doing with that money is just saving it to buy an investment property and maybe turn that 3-bedroom home into another Airbnb.
Absolutely.
And he's got all these things on Instagram about why you should arbitrage versus that. But for me, it's more about, I want to be able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And I think that owning a property for me is a lot easier to do that than arbitrage. So I feel like for me, I like to have a lot of different portfolio items in that, because I think that they all work differently.
Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more. You talk a lot about different kinds of hacks in your business within the Facebook groups. Kind of one of the best things about the community. You get to meet people like Monish and Chandi. We got to meet you.
Yeah.
We got to meet, the Christian Bowmans and whatnot. But you talk about a lot of tips. One of them is refinishing the furniture. You've had a lot of success in this. Can you just, tell the people what does that look like? Because I've seen the before and after.
Yeah.
And the afters are gorgeous.
Yeah. So basically I was on Facebook Marketplace because I'm like, I have to do something different about these dressers because people are complaining that the dresser is falling apart, and I'm mortified, right? Because I'm the one who put it together and I already know that the drawer sticks. But so I started looking at Facebook Marketplace, and, I have an Acura TLX. I don't have a big car. I'm like, if I buy stuff off of Marketplace, how much is it going to cost me to have somebody go pick it up, bring it here, versus ordering something off of Amazon and trying to put it together again? So I found this guy who was like rehabbing 1980s, super ugly, wood dressers from when I grew up as a kid, and painting them whatever color, distressing them, making them really cool. So I reached out to him and I was like, so the biggest thing for me was I need this guy to deliver. so I'm like, if I order, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I order 7 pieces from you, will you come deliver them to my apartment? I don't care how much they cost, just deliver them for free. So I created a relationship with this guy that he does the furniture flipping. So if you get on YouTube, you'll see all the people that like furniture flip. So they find these dressers or nightstands. And I started using big dressers as my TV stand, in the living room. And so he'll paint them whatever color. And sometimes I just say, look, here's the theme of my next apartment, surprise me. And he just surprises me with amazing furniture. And so it's the same amount of money as I would spend if I ordered something off of Wayfair or Amazon, and then I would have to put it together.
That's really cool. Really
cool.
So
if you look on your local Facebook marketplaces, you'll find people just like that.
Such a huge hack, because again, the one of the toughest things is dressers. They're big and either they're really old looking or they're all kind of the same the other way. And if you try to get something that's really unique, you're paying through the roof. So love what you're doing. Another big hack that you've been talking about, I didn't even know this, and I have a property management license. So thank you for this tip. But you talked a lot about prospecting and about really marketing one of your properties. And you said, call real estate brokerages. Mm-hmm. Can you tell our audience what that was all about in that pro tip?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate that I was with a very large real estate brands before I have gone out on my own, where we had a Facebook group, and I would just post hey, if anybody's in between houses, because, what the market is shifting a little bit, but it's still out there. So anybody that was oh my God, I sold my house too fast, but I got $100K over list price. Now they're homeless. So my realtor friends would reach out to me and be like, do you have anything for these months? Or, so they would come to me to look for temporary housing. So I would say that for myself, I borderline are my goal is to be more of a corporate housing specialist that just tends to put my properties on Airbnb and VRBO. But I will say, so, what I said was, look, if you're slow, go call your local real estate offices and let them know that you have these short-term units, because everybody's looking for a short-term rental because their build is now taking too long and they have to be out of their house. Or so my guy in Zionsville, who I put it up, and the next week he booked it for 3 months. That's 3 months that I don't have to have it cleaned or replenish the toilet paper or drive up there because it's 20 minutes away. Like, and I'm profiting like $900 for a month from that, you know? So those types of things, like you really have to think about like, who do I want staying in my properties, right? Like, so I don't do the nurse websites because I know them and they always want to like nickel and dime me. And, you know, my thing is that I do not want to go lower than a certain rate, because then like that is not the experience that I want to have. And my house, I do a 3-night minimum. People have asked me to do 2 nights, and that's $1,200 I'd make in a weekend. But for me, it's not worth it. Like I could move back in.
Mm-hmm.
And my apartments, I really try, I do 5-day minimum. And then if I have like an opening in between, then I'll open it up for 3 days.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very, very
So I
cool.
know like there's all this like pricing that works for other people, but for me, I just don't, I'm not a math person. So like logically and like all of that, you know, it's just, it like overwhelms me.
Yeah. And I think it all comes back to, again, lifestyle, where for yourself, it's you have your number, you have your minimum, but at the same time, you understand what this business is and what it isn't for you. And what it isn't is that nonstop action-packed need to be in the trenches managing this thing. Whereas, you know what? Hey, I know what I'm going to get out of this portfolio. It's going to bring me a great lifestyle with very minimal touch points. What you're going to focus on is the experience and equality. If I knock those two things out, then I'm going to attract my ideal guest. They're going to have an amazing experience. And then not only do I prosper, but all my teammates do. In your case, obviously the cleaners.
Yeah. And, you know, another thing that I did was I tried very hard to control the surroundings of my units.
How so?
So, I mean, I'm very protective of who, I mean, I own like, not own, but rent 50% of the first level here in my building. And so
Mhm.
I'm very protective of who comes in. Like, I know that I don't have much say in that, but if there's going to
Mhm.
be a problem tenant next to my people, like, you know, the management here, they love me.
Mhm.
And that's another thing, I take care of them. Like I buy them lunch like every other month, I bring them cookies, like I appreciate them even though maybe they are not doing the best job, but I still appreciate and acknowledge them. And again, it is really about having those relationships with people so that if I do have some sort of issue or complaint, then I can have an authentic conversation with them about it, and they're going to listen to me. So this apartment complex changed management, and the new management was like, we're not doing any more corporate housing, because there's another corporate housing company in here that had like 11 units, and
Mhm.
because they leased it at the end of 2019. So,
Mhm.
you know, it was a scary time then. But now the market is shifting and housing everywhere. And so they came to me and asked me if I would pick up other units. And now I was finally able to negotiate some like free weeks. But they have a sister property in downtown Fishers. It's walkable to everything. And I was going to get one, but it's just, I was so nervous about the quality. I mean,
Mhm.
and they are paying like $1,900 a month. And I was like, well, I'll just wait for a 2-bedroom here because this place is much nicer.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you know, like scratches in the floors and like those are the things I don't tolerate, because it's going to come back on me when it comes to the experience of the person staying there.
Right, right. No, once again, love it. And I think this episode especially is a great class for anybody out there who sees that, hey, I don't have to follow one rigid model. As long as the foundations are all the same and you're running it as a great business, there's so many ways that you can craft the Airbnb business. So I just love what you're doing here. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You've crafted this amazing business. We know we've said this many times, but it's a lifestyle business. So very minimal. It's something to be very proud of, something I'm proud of you already. But where do you want to take it now?
Yeah. So I am waiting for the next, like, I'm probably done for the year in terms of adding. I added 2 in a different area that are not doing as well as I would want. I mean, so far I'm profiting, but they're not like these units here get booked like months ahead of time. So I'm not used to like, oh my God, I have a week coming up that's not booked and then it getting booked at the last minute. I'm not used to that because I've created a market of like I get a ton of VRBO people and those people always book like months in advance, I have people wanting to book a year in advance. And I'm like, look, I don't know where I'll be in a year. So I'll let you know in January or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Good old Verbo.
So next door to my house, the neighbor owns 2-acre lot in between me and him. And then he has a house that he wants to sell and tear down. So I have been in talks with him and just saving money. I almost would like to take his little 1-acre lot, tear down his house and put it up a container home.
Oh,
so those are some of the things that I've been thinking about. But there are about 5 new lease up apartments that are going to be coming up in like the end of 2023. So, I don't know, depending on the real estate market, maybe I'll buy a house or maybe I'll buy his lot and then hold it for a little while and start planning for a container home. And the issue is though that like those are just as expensive to build. Like, I mean, they're like 600,000 to build. So I just have to run the numbers and see if I could make that work or, or maybe I move in there and like use my house, like, or sell my house or, I don't know. So I'm always thinking though, but I'm getting ready to get married next year. And so, I'm 42 years old and I would like to start traveling. Like I'd like to travel 3 to 6 months out of the year. So I will have to find somebody to like do the little details that I do for this business. But for the most part, my cleaners do it. So I don't know, we'll see. But I'm always thinking, like now that I'm not running a real estate machine and I'm on my own and I am a little bit slower and I'm not used to having all the time. So I'm super bored. I was telling my coach, I'm like, I don't know what to do now. So we'll see. I don't know. I thought about maybe getting my nursing license back and just doing some PRN hospice work just to be around, people and helping them in that process or, I don't know. So I go through those crazy times where I have these big visions and then I make them happen. And then I'm like, okay, that was great. Like, what's next?
Life of a high achiever, the curse of the high achiever.
It is a curse. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? Your business is so interesting. I absolutely love it. I'm going to throw some quick questions at you. Sure. Okay. We're going to spice it up now.
Okay.
Let's start with this one. This one went really well last week. If you had a time machine and you could go back and visit yourself from the very beginning, but you only had 60 seconds to talk to yourself, what would you say?
I mean, I would say like, stop second guessing and just do it. It's going to be fine.
You don't even need the 60 seconds.
No, everything is fine.
Awesome. Okay. How about this one? If you could host any one person in history, who would you love to host in your Airbnbs?
Oh, you know what? I actually have had 3 famous people stay at my house.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh God, I would have to say, oh gosh, I don't really like idolize many people. Shania Twain.
Oh,
and then Canadian. I'd ask her if I could stay. Like have a party.
Wonderful. Okay. Right now, if you could list for us, what are your top 3 favorite either podcasts, books, or YouTube channels right now?
So right now my favorite YouTube channel is a travel vlogger called the Indigo Traveler. I don't know if you've ever watched him. His name's Nick. He's from he's a Kiwi. He's from New Zealand, and he goes to all the countries that like nobody wants to go to. So like right now he's in Haiti. And so his travel vlogs are all about the people, you know, like how the people are handling like their environment, and show like, especially in Middle Eastern countries, how they're not really like scary. So that's my YouTube. My podcast is Bigger Pockets Real Estate. And the book, I actually just got this book from Matthew McConaughey that I'm starting to read.
Oh, so Red Light, Green Light.
Yeah, I haven't, Green Lights. I haven't started it yet. So this is going to be like my next book. But there is a book that I just read that's amazing. Hold on, let me get it really quick. Okay, so this is a great book from my broker. It's called The Gap and the Gain. So this is really about, this is a book about high achievers and how to appreciate the gain versus being in the gap of it's not good enough, or I haven't succeeded where I want to be. So it's really about learning a thought process of being in the moment and being in what we have achieved versus what we still could do, because, you know, for us, it's never enough. And so to get into that space of like, everything is fine as it is.
Incredible. And who's Dan Sullivan again? That name sounds so familiar.
He is like a strategic coach. So it was really good. I read it in like a day. It was that good.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. You're a fast reader.
Well, that one only because it was good, but some of them are not good, and I like stop halfway through.
Okay. Here's a fun question for you. This one's brand new to the show. Would you rather fight a 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Oh my God. Probably 100 duck-sized horses.
Yeah, why is that?
Because I feel like I could maybe just like step on them and squash them
as they're scuttling everywhere.
Yeah, I can break down a lot of smaller things at once versus like one giant thing that I'm like, I don't know where to start. So
wonderful. Well, Amy, if those viewers who are watching the show, especially on the repeat, how can they find you and follow your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I just have a personal Instagram or on Facebook, or they could email me. I don't even know my Instagram. Is that bad? Hold on. What is my Instagram? How do I find that? Hold on.
You'd hop on it.
Hold on.
There
okay, it's Amy _ Lynn LYNN _ McIntyre MCINTYRE.
Wonderful. And I'll connect with you off the show here so we can get connected. Anyone who's already in the group, this is a perfect chance to reach out to Amy and really talk to her, because the way that she's built her company is unlike a lot of the other guests we've talked to. A lifestyle brand, a lifestyle company over, you know, the Olympics of money making. So absolutely adore what you're doing here. Thank you for coming on the show. Do you have any last words for people who may be just starting off?
No, I mean, and I tell everybody that, you know, anybody can make anything successful, and it doesn't happen overnight. You know, it's really, know if you've ever read The Compound Effect, but it's just task over task over task that, you know, eventually something will pop and happen. So again, when I got my first apartment, I think I spent a week calling and emailing 3 times, like 3 hours a day.
Great advice. Great advice. For those of you who are joining us, thank you again. I want to thank our guest, Amy McIntyre, for being on the show. If you guys have any questions for myself, you can follow me at Taking Lunch Money. And if you guys want to figure out if you're a good fit to work with Sean in the coaching program, feel free to click the link, book a strategy call, and I will talk with you guys personally, dissect your business. And even if you're not a good fit to work with Sean, we have a whole suite of amazing tools that we can put into your hands. Amy, I want to thank you for joining the show today. Have yourself a great trip in Europe. Congratulations on the wedding.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone for joining. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.